Hello, my name is Maja. I work as a Chief People Officer at Vega IT. Next to me is the founder and the CEO of the company, Sasa Popović. So, Sasha, can you tell us more about where and when have you discovered happiness at work idea?
It all started around 11 years ago when Vladan and I started this company. And I could say that we did it for selfish reasons. We started a workplace where we wanted to be happy. And later on, when we started hiring people, we also wanted them to be happy, and we wanted to be surrounded with happy people. And at that time, we didn't even know anything about happiness of work idea or the science of happiness at work. We just intuitively created a culture where we would feel great and where we would be happy more often than being unhappy. So it started like that when there was just two of us, and later on we continued the same way as the company was growing.
So it was all about intuition. What about some kind of research?
Well, to be honest, in the first years it was just intuition. We did read about good practices of other companies, usually of other IT companies who were older than us and great at what they're doing. But it was, I think, 5 or 6 years after we founded the company that I got to know a company called Woohoo Inc. From Copenhagen, and the founder of that company, Alexander Kerlov. I had a chance to watch one of his keynote talks, and I really liked the idea he was talking about and some specific advices that he gave us about how we can be happier at work, etc. And then I bought his book called Happy Hour is 9 to 5, and then started reading about that subject. And after that, I read much more and shared my findings with colleagues of mine who were interested in the subject. And that's how it all started being more formal and not only based on intuition. After that, we also formed our happiness committee, which was eventually renamed to culture committee. Years ago, we had our first chief happiness officer, but in general, well, as you know, also our people operations team is very much involved in the subject of happiness at work, and we use all different kind of materials, including that we get through partnership with Woohoo Inc. to learn more about this topic and to apply what we've learned within this organization.
So, culture committee, chief happiness officer, where does it all start?
I would say it all starts with our flat structure. So it means that everyone can speak with anyone they want. Our colleagues can speak with me directly at any time, but also with anyone else. And that makes things much easier. There are no barriers. We can hear great ideas. We can easily see and understand when we've made a mistake, or understand that we need to explain something better.
So it all comes up to transparency, right?
Yes, we are very transparent. You can see that even our office space is very transparent. But also in other ways, you can ask anything you want, anyone you want. So, for example, if you don't feel good about asking someone directly, you can also do it anonymously. You can go to a page on our website, submit a question or a comment, and the moment you do that, everyone within the company would receive an email with that specific question or comment. And then the next Friday, we all gather around and talk about that subject. And it happens that we get a challenging question, something that we didn't really think about going with publicly. but then we are challenged with that, and we just go in front of our colleagues and talk about that.
So one of the ways is to post a comment or question anonymously. And how often does it happen actually?
It doesn't happen that often that we get those anonymous questions or comments. Actually, when we started this practice, I think 6 years ago or something like that, we were getting all different kind of challenging questions and comments all the time. It was happening that we received 2 or 3 per day. But then over the time, as we were improving and answering all those questions that were somewhere in the air, we started receiving less and less of those. It's probably also related to the fact that our culture was improving as well, and people feel safer to ask and say something also in person. But in addition to that, in addition to anonymous questions and comments that you can send, we also use a tool that we've built, which is called Hard Count. And by using that tool, we know on a weekly basis how our colleagues feel at work. We know if they didn't feel well because they were not praised for doing a great job or anything similar. And that way we really can approach challenges at the right time. So for example, what happens and what was happening to us before, but what I also see with other companies, is that you have a person who doesn't feel well this week, but they feel it's something less important or not that important to go and speak with someone about it. And then the week after, you also have a small thing, but you don't speak with anyone about it. And then small thing over small thing, and then in 6 months' time or in a year time, you don't feel great at that organization anymore, and you will easily go elsewhere and work somewhere else. So basically, by knowing how our colleagues feel on a weekly basis, we can react on time, help them feel much better, and stay much longer with us.
So good deeds are done with 2 colleagues, let's say it like that. Well, what about the community?
Yeah, well, it's a good question, because we invest a lot of our time and efforts in helping the community we live in as well, because we feel that it's not enough that our company is successful and is doing great. We just feel that the community we live in should be good as well, and because of us, because of other people, because of our children who live here, and so we have all different kind of activities we do to support the local community. One of them that I find most interesting is an initiative we called Code for a Cause. It all starts with a 2-day hackathon every year, where we work on software that was proposed, or software ideas that were proposed by the community. We usually don't complete those projects during those 2 days. We just continue working on that months after that until we finish the work. And usually we would do 5 to 7 projects like that per year.
And I assume a lot is learned from initiatives like that. But what about some learning activities and knowledge sharing activities that we do in a company? Actually, when did that idea came up?
Yeah, first, you're right. When we do these community projects, projects for community, we also learn a lot from that. We form teams, people work together on projects with different technologies and so on. But other than that, I could say that we are a real learning organization, because every week we have different kinds of activities that allow us to learn both technical topics but also non-technical ones. So every week we have at least a lecture or a workshop, knowledge sharing sessions. Some are organized for the whole company, some within teams, many happening simultaneously at the same time. And the majority of our colleagues really appreciate that, the fact that they can learn here, that they are encouraged and motivated to learn, given resources also to do that. You asked about when it all started. Well, it started from day one. From day one, we were very, very focused on learning. We work in the IT industry, which is changing day after day, so you really have to be up to date with the latest technologies and ways of working, etc. So yeah, I would say from day one, we were doing it internally. We were inviting external people to help us learn, as I said, both technical and non-technical topics.
So is there anything beyond learning?
Yes, we do a lot of things to promote entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship. So we want our colleagues to become real entrepreneurs within this organization, and we really have a lot of colleagues who, including you, who really are entrepreneurs here. But we also are encouraging and trying to educate in some way our colleagues who have entrepreneurial spirit and who would like to lead their own companies. We've co-founded a few companies in the past few years with some of our colleagues, but we've also helped some of our colleagues to start their own companies even when we are not part of them. We believe that by helping others to build companies, successful companies, we are also helping the local community, which will be stronger by having more successful companies here.
So hearing all this, people would easily assume that everyone in our company is actually happy. So are they all happy?
Well, people are happy most of the time. You can't be always happy. It's enough if you're happy most of the time. But there are also times when something doesn't work well. For example, someone is not performing as good as they should, or people with their behavior are hurting someone. So in those cases, we first try to help our colleagues the best we can. In some cases, it might be that we work with someone for a year, or in some cases it was even longer than a year time. If we see that people really, truly want to improve and are doing their best in that, then we will give them a chance for as long as needed. But in some cases, it doesn't work. And we put a lot of time and effort and it still doesn't work, and people are being hurt. So in those rare cases, we decide to fire someone. But even when we are firing, we do our best to do it with dignity. Those were still our colleagues and still good people, but it just doesn't work for us. And when we're doing that, we don't fire them and say that they need to leave in 30 days. We tell them that they can stay for as long as they want, or for as long as they don't find a proper job. Because if you have just 30 days, then you might be forced to take on another job that you don't really like that much. But if you're not forced to leave in 30 days, then you can just wait for a recruiter to send you a very good offer, and then you're in a much better position to find a nice job. And the majority of our colleagues who got fired stay in a good relation with us, and we are still in contact, etc., because we did it with dignity. We didn't make them feel very bad, even though the whole situation is not very pleasant and not perfect.
They don't hold it against us, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
So the two of us in the last few months have worked on improving our onboarding process. Can you tell us something more about that?
Yes, so we identified that our onboarding was not that great. because we came to the number of around 200 people, and it happened a few times that people would not be welcomed in the right way to our culture, introduced in the right way. So yeah, I would say that some of the main improvements that we did were to, from day one, assign a few colleagues to the new person, to the newcomer. One would be a star mate, so someone who would help that person to socialize within our organization and get to know a specific number of new people outside of their office, but also get assigned with a technical mentor, someone who can help them improve their technical knowledge, support them with the first assignments and so on. But also a number of lectures and discussions about our culture, about soft skills that they might lack.
We use the new term now, right?
Yeah,
People skills.
Yeah, people skills. Yeah, I like that one more. So yeah, a number of lectures and workshops on people skills.
But you do also have lunch with every single one of our new colleagues.
Yeah, I like that thing as well. That's something new. So basically, during the first week, the new colleague would have a lunch in our cafeteria every day with different set of people. So that way you really get to know that new colleague. And I also personally have at least one lunch with every new colleague during that first week. And I really appreciate that because with the number of 200 people now, it's not even that easy anymore to remember everyone's name. But when we have that lunch, and even though it's just 30 minutes of time, I get to know some of their personal stories, and then it's much easier to remember who is who, what they're doing, what their passion is, or what motivates them to work.
So what's the most common question they ask you at that lunch?
I get all different kind of questions, but I would say that they most often ask me whether I'm still coding or not. And that's because I'm also a software developer, but yeah, I don't code for years now. So yeah, that's I think the most often one asked.
Well, that's interesting because I thought that the most often question was, how did you came up with the name Vega IT?
You're right. They ask that as well very often. And yeah, would you like my answer then? So,
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Yeah. So yeah, when we were thinking about the name, we thought we will take Vega, which is a star from the constellation of Lyra, because it's the second most important star for where we live, and we thought it's better to be second and trying to be first than just think you are the best and relax and have that attitude of the best. And so even when we get rewards for being the best for this or that, we still push ourselves to feel like being the second and running for the first place.
So Sasha, we have talked about a lot of different topics today. And what are the last words you will share with us about our company culture?
Let me change that to a question. Can I ask you what was your impression of our culture and our way of living here when you joined Vega IT 5 years ago?
So, do you remember how I was hired? You asked me to host a workshop for 15 of our colleagues at that time, and you let them decide if I was the right person for that role.
Yeah. How did you feel about it?
Well, people would assume I was scared, but I actually wasn't. It all felt natural to me, and the people were very pleasant and polite and asked me a bunch of questions, so I didn't feel strange at all. I feel like I was at home.
Yeah. And the first day you came to work, you already had 15 colleagues who know you and who appreciate what you know about the job and how good you are at giving workshops, etc. So
Yeah.
I think that situation we throw you in also had some benefits.
Yeah, I do agree because a lot of them were actually talking about that workshop with other colleagues. So a lot of them actually knew my name before I actually came to work.
Yeah. Was there anything strange, or how did you like it? Was anything surprising, or was it what you expected to see when you joined our organization?
Well, no, it wasn't surprising at all because I found what I was looking for the whole of my life. I always wanted to work in a place where I would help people be better at their job. So I found a company that has that same mission, shares with me the same values, and I think that we do a lot of great things together.
And how about transparency? Was that strange, or how did you feel about it?
No, it wasn't strange. It wasn't difficult. I think I'm very open. I do laugh and cry in front of you. Now, speaking of the past, do you remember our first project together?
You mean choosing the core values?
Choosing our
I
core
remember.
values,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was a nice experience. So we invited all our colleagues to help us choose our core values, and we did that in such a way that we would group people in pairs, and then each pair would choose five of their core values, and then a pair would speak to another pair, and that group would choose their core values and then go and speak with another group of four, and so on, until we got to one final group of everyone to agree on the final five. And it's interesting that some of my core values didn't went through, but still those that we choose at the end are very similar to what I initially had in mind. So it was a very nice experience.
Yeah, it was. And after all this being said, which happiness at work tip you would share with us?
The best way to become happier is to make someone else happy. Or at least this works the best for me, and it really motivates me to do all different kind of things at Vega IT. And what about you? Are you happy here, and what makes you happy?
Yes, I do feel happy at work because I do great things with good people. Thank you, Sasha, for your time. Thanks, everyone, for listening. If you're ever in Novi Sad, feel free to come and visit us and to learn more about our company culture.